an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 8, Episode 8, Mummy on the Orient Express. In this episode, Owen sat next to me while I watched this episode and said at least 4 times, "This is all I've ever wanted from Doctor Who. I wish every episode was like this." Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jaime.
So, Jaime.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on this episode? Had you watched this one already?
No.
Another one.
Another one that I missed. I had high expectations for this one because it's one of the ones that people had talked about the most.
Okay.
I liked it fine. I loved the clothes.
Absolutely.
Wonderful flapper dresses.
The setting is just impeccable.
Yeah. The hair that Clara has is goals.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have that haircut, and I wish I could.
Why can't you?
My hair's too wavy.
Just straighten it. If it's that short, it takes like 2 seconds to straighten.
Even with straightening, when my hair's that length, it does this weird thing where it still wants to flip in one direction. Both sides go in the same direction, so one flip is out and one flip is under.
I know exactly what you mean. Yep.
Yeah. So I have done that haircut a number of times because I really love it. It doesn't work with my hair. It sucks. I liked the episode, but something that I found in discussing this with some listeners recently is that nothing from this season has stuck with me. That there so far has not been a single episode that I would choose to go back and watch. Like, this one is better than any of the previous ones, for sure, but it doesn't reach, like, the level where I would just be like, yeah, I want to watch that episode. It was really fun.
I definitely understand what you mean. When Owen said, "This is all I've ever wanted from Doctor Who, and I wish every episode was like this," he did not get to watch the whole thing. And I really wonder what he would have thought once it came to the part where the doctor's just like, "Yeah, you're going to die, and that definitely sucks for you, but it's great for us." So, because I feel like he would have had some things to say about that.
Right.
But up until that point, Owen, this setting, we've been watching a lot of Poirot, Miss Fisher's Mysteries. The 20s is just in our vibe right now. And the fact that it's a mummy, which is just such a weird classic monster that you just don't see that often, despite how ubiquitous the imagery from it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that I understand why he had that reaction. It's certainly strange, though. The whole conceit of this episode, it's a really weird sort of overlap to have the 20s thing and then the mummy thing. I understand why that's done, but normally the 20s setting is done because we're going to have pith helmets and, the colonizers at bars in the desert. And so for everybody to be completely separated from that, but there still be a mummy, was a little bit surprising. And also, when the reveal of the train is actually going through space, he did a little cheer and was very excited about that.
It's a good concept. It has great bones of an idea.
Potential.
Yeah. The mummy on the train that only the person that's going to kill can see is a good idea. The train being in space and everything having this 1920s aesthetic is a good idea. That sort of take on Murder on the Orient Express Agatha Christie thing that they love to do. I dig it. Mm-hmm. And yet, something about it felt like it just felt hollow.
Yeah, I understand that feeling. For me, it was really like, and I find this to be true of a lot of episodes in general, is that the episode starts and I'm like, oh, yes, here we go. This is awesome. And then it feels like that falls to the wayside. The parts of this that I'm excited about that I kind of thought were going to be, and sometimes I'm not even sure what I'm looking for. But, like whenever we wind up in like a sort of Dickensian England during Christmas time thing. Mm-hmm. And I just like want something from that I don't always get. And I think that is my feeling about this show overall, is there's a lot of really interesting, cool ideas. There's a lot of potential, but it feels really, really rare that the potential is realized at all. And this season has made me sort of like step back and really look at Stephen Moffat, because what's happening here is basically what he did to
Sherlock.
Yeah. Yes. Because he's kind of doing the whole, oh yeah, this guy has no interpersonal relations. He's a super smart, but very logical and cold-blooded person. And you have to learn to be okay with that. Rather than maybe he should learn to adjust how he behaves. Mm-hmm. And it makes me wonder about what the fuck the deal is with Moffat. Not for nothing, but the whole thing with like, we have to adjust ourselves to the way that shitty men are is played out.
Yes. I was going to say, like, why is it on us to adapt to them? Mm-hmm. Because it always has been. Yeah. That doesn't mean it's the way it should be. Like, you watched Elementary. Sherlock on that he had a bit of that like, he's difficult and he's super smart. He's smarter than everybody and he's hard to get to know. But if you watch it long enough, he actually does adapt his behavior with certain people enough that you can understand why anybody would want to spend time with him. Mm-hmm. That's necessary if you want to really continue enjoying something and not just be like, God, this guy. Like, shut up, Sherlock. Shut up, Doctor. Stop being a dick. I got some feedback from people about the soldier thing. I think it was Sean Sheridan who has basically headcanon that the reason that the Doctor is so anti-soldier right now is because in Matt Smith's last episode, the Doctor basically spent 900 years protecting a town. And then he becomes... And it was essentially like a new version of the Time War. He becomes Capaldi's Doctor, and he still has all of that, like, residue. Which, sure, I can see what you're saying, but the show is not telling me that. Yeah. That's headcanon, and it's a good headcanon. It does make a lot of sense, but we should not have to fill in the blanks. Mm-hmm. And instead, every week I have a question of, what is his deal with soldiers? Someone else said that there have been times in the past that the Doctor has had these kinds of issues with soldiers, and I forget what they said, like maybe the 2nd Doctor, 6th Doctor, that kind of thing. I would assume at those times it was explained, and I hope that person, I can't remember who it was that said it. I've read a lot of comments recently. If they could tell me if that was something that was built in story-wise, mm-hmm. because this doesn't feel built in. Mm-hmm. It feels very sudden. And then even in this episode, we have a mummy who was a soldier and ends his whole thing with saluting the Doctor. Mm-hmm. It's like, what is the deal with soldiers this season.
Yeah, I completely understand what it is that... Who was it?
I think it was Sean Sheridan.
Sean, I admire your commitment, but let's all be honest with one another here. No. That's a great concept. That is not what's happening, because they haven't told us that.
Right.
It's just, that's it. That's all there is to it. And I am a huge fan of headcanons just as a fun thing to do, but you can't have a headcanon substitute for plot.
Right. You can't have
headcanons are meant to be supplemental for fun extras.
Right. It can't be canon.
Yeah. And it can't be a pillar of the personality of the main character. You know, like, his hatred of soldiers has become a central feature of who the Doctor is this season. Mm-hmm. The fact that we have to headcanon that at all is absurd. Like, it's just, that is such bad writing. I don't know what they were thinking. So I completely understand what you're saying, and if they had chosen to do that, that would make some sense. But they haven't, and this is just... Honestly, it's more than just bad writing. It's like, did they cut something? Did something happen? Because there's a feeling almost of like, we missed it. Right. You know? And I have had my issues with the Sherlock series because I don't love how some of the female characters are treated, and, you know, the trope of the, very annoying but very smart main guy. But at least it never felt like there was huge pieces missing. And this does feel that way, and it's just weird, you know?
Some of the additional feedback that I've gotten is that people have a lot of affection for this Doctor, but they're realizing in listening to us and rewatching this season that their affection for him comes from later, specifically the next season. And that the writing in this season is exceptionally bad. What annoys me about that is what I have been hearing for a very long time now is, please hang on until you get to 12. I really love 12. I really love 12. Please don't quit. Please don't quit. And yet, I was really honest in my comments to people this week that nothing from this season is sticking with me. Mm-hmm. People brought up specific instances and episodes, and I was like, are you talking about something that hasn't been done yet? Because Natasha can see these comments. And they're like, no, it was this episode. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even remember that happened. The writing is so bad that I'm not looking forward to talking about it. And I'm the one that's a fan of this show. So I can only imagine how you feel.
Honestly, I'm looking forward to it a lot more now because you're on board with my opinions. Because before, I was dreading it because I was like, I know Jaime likes this, and I'm going to be such a downer, and it's going to suck, and I'm going to feel so bad. And now I'm like, oh, Jaime is so mad, and I can't wait to hear her be mad again because I am also mad.
You say mad, and I can't even muster up the energy to be mad. I'm just so bored and irritated that, like, there used to, even the stuff that I loved about the show, that in talking about it with you, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can see your point. I still loved those things for the most part, or grew to love things I didn't know that I liked to start with. Mm-hmm. And this, I'm just like, there's nothing for me to hang on to. And it's really difficult to be the one that's like, let's hang on and see where it goes, when so far I don't feel like it's going. Yeah. I feel like we're like treading water in every cast-off idea they've had for the last several years. There's nothing significant that's happening. And someone else had an idea that maybe they wrote the Doctor this way because the most famous character that Capaldi ever played was this character on, it was basically like the UK version of Veep. It was created by the guy who created Veep. I forget what it was called, but he played like a political person in the UK. And he was very angry and swearing all the time, and it's a comedy, and that's what he's most known for. So it's like they leaned into that thing that people liked about him, where he's like not a joyful, cheerful person. That doesn't work for the Doctor. He needs to have some levity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why does anybody want to travel with him when he's like, oh, you're going to die. Too bad.
And it's really, look, guys, I'm going to be honest. Again, because of the overall badness, we're not really going to go beat by beat through the plot on this. So just, sorry, again, but there it is. When the plot deserves it, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
But the whole thing this episode is everybody trying to convince Clara that she actually does like him and care about him. And honestly, it just feels like Moffat being like, no, seriously, you guys love the Doctor, don't forget.
Right.
Well, I did forget because you suck. And you made him suck. And that's your fault.
Yeah.
And it does feel like, oh, we are going to put Clara into a position where she is basically being gaslit by everybody around her, who they all are just acting, they're saying this bullshit. What was it that Danny said to her last episode about how, like, if you still hate him, then you still care?
Yeah, you wouldn't be this mad if you didn't care.
And then a friend of hers said, hatred is too strong an emotion to waste it on somebody you don't like.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, no.
What?
Everyone I hate is because they're awful.
What?
I don't hate people I love.
What? What? Shut up. This is like the fucking abuser's handbook kind of thing. Where everybody's trying to act like, oh, well, if you really wanted to leave, you would have just left. And you would have shut the door and you wouldn't be here right now. And
well,
if he's
actually,
that bad,
I
why are
agree
you
with.
still? And I'm like, you guys, people handle shit in different ways. And she's honestly, it feels like she's here because Danny sort of like push her.
Yeah, Danny said, go have one last hurrah.
Yeah.
And then she gets upset when it's said to be a last hurrah.
Mm-hmm.
And then she lies to Danny at the end. Yeah, it's done. Okay, Doctor, as long as you get me back in the exact moment so that no one knows that I'm lying to them.
Why? Explain to me why.
I
Anybody.
Cannot.
Danny clearly wants her to keep up her relationship with the Doctor. He's encouraging this. The last hurrah does not feel like him being like, this really has to be the last one. It feels like, look, you know that you're going to forgive him. Just go out and have a good time and you'll get over it. And then you can go back to normal. That's what it feels like. It's certainly the tone he took with her last episode. So why should she lie? What possible motivation does she have? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's just nonsense. And it just feels like, again, we are meant to be like tricked into thinking that the Doctor is fine. And she says something about how like, oh, you weren't intending for her to just die. It turns out you're not that cold-hearted. And he literally says, is that what you need to think to be able to deal with me?
Right, because he was willing to let her die. And he says, if she had died, then I'd move on to the next one.
Yep. Again, with the like abuser's handbook of like, well, you should watch out for me because I'm a real asshole.
Well, and again with the, since when is the Doctor okay with sacrificing people?
Yep.
Since fucking when? Because not in this reboot. Maybe back in the day, but I don't count that shit because I've never seen it. Since 2005, when has the Doctor ever been okay with sacrificing people?
Yeah, it feels like that's supposed to be the whole thing about him. And we've just completely done away with that. And yet, he hates soldiers. So we are being
gaslit. Because we're supposed to believe this is normal.
Yeah, we're supposed to believe this is normal, and we're supposed to believe that he hates soldiers, but then he does not seem to be taking human life very seriously at all. So you don't really have a leg to stand on in your anti-soldier stance, because you don't really give a fuck who lives and dies. So
this is twice in a row that people are in danger, and he's like, yeah, and?
Mm-hmm. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't either. And I don't know. I don't have any kind of like idea of what their point was. But watching the show, for me, and not liking the Doctor, and not being given enough reasons to like the companion.
Yeah.
It's a hard watch every week. It's a hard rewatch because now I have to watch it again. I already have to watch this. Now I have to watch it again. Which normally I don't have a problem with. Maybe once in a while there's an episode where I'm like, I just don't like this episode and it sucks, I have to rewatch it. But no, now I have to watch these and pay close attention, and all I can think is, I don't like you people right now. And I don't have a lot of... I'm not one of the people that dislikes Clara the way that a lot of people do or did. A little bit more now that we're discussing it week to week, but this shit of lying to her boyfriend for no apparent reason...
Yep.
Why am I supposed to like her?
Yep.
When she's doing this. I like Danny. He's given me absolutely no reason not to.
And if it's meant to add tension, then you don't show us their grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren. Because we know they're going to wind up together. Do you hear this
Is
plane?
that an airplane?
That shit is breaking the sound barrier. What are they doing?
God.
I have never heard... I have headphones on and that shit was too loud. God damn.
That is a low-flying plane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway.
Yeah. If they need to add tension, then you need to have Danny saying what he's saying with different words. Not, oh, are you done with him? In a, very casual...
Passive.
But it's me or him.
Mm-hmm.
Are you done with him? Or are you with me? Are you not with me? Then you're staying with him? Okay. It has to actually be an ultimatum for her to be lying like this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, as far as I can tell, it wasn't.
But instead, we have him basically convincing her to stay with the Doctor. When I don't know why he was mistreated by the Doctor. The Doctor was a massive dickhead to him.
Yes.
So why is he suddenly on this guy's side? It's like he's a fucking, witch. It's like the Doctor is mind controlling people around him to make people, respect him and like him for things that he never actually did. It's really weird. Guys, I don't know what to make of this. I really don't.
At least in WandaVision, we got a reason.
If that was a thing where we got to find out that there was a thing with the TARDIS where it's like, yes, it translates any language and also it makes you like the Doctor when you really shouldn't. All right.
It makes you forgive all his transgressions and think he's wonderful. You get, what's the word I'm looking for? Not immunized. You, as soon as you're around the TARDIS, it, like, starts controlling you and your perceptions. At least that would be something. But instead, it's like, he's out here being a dick, and everyone's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
He's so great. When before, he was sometimes an ass. But also very helpful and caring.
Mm-hmm.
And weird and goofy. And sometimes fun to be around. And I haven't had fun with this Doctor, except when he was just coming out of regeneration and he was a little silly.
Right.
Which gave me a lot of hope when I finally, like, went back and watched that episode in preparation for us, like, deciding if we were going to keep on. And I watched that episode and I was like, you know what? This might not be so bad.
Well, I just personally, when we started off this season, I was actually kind of excited, as you all know, because I have said the Doctor is an asshole, but it felt like the show was ignoring that.
Right.
So I was like, oh, okay, we're going to acknowledge that now. And I was sort of like, all right, we're deciding to actually face up to the fact. And instead, it's almost worse now than it was, because in the past, my issue was, how is everybody acting like he's doing the right thing? And it's very clearly not, like, okay. He's making weird, messed up choices. But okay, I guess because we're not meant to, like, look into this any further than the very surface of the situation. Oh, we're supposed to be like kids and just be like, yeah, that works. But now they're like, oh, we're definitely going to, like, point out that he's a dickhead and we're going to have everybody acknowledge it. But we're still not going to have him suffer consequences for that.
Yeah.
We're still not going to have the main person who hangs out with him, like, actually have a problem with him in a way that lasts or forces him to change. It's going to be her having an issue with him in a way that is incredibly understandable. And every single person she meets, including a complete stranger who does not know her or the Doctor at all, telling her, well, obviously you're still into this guy, so I don't know why you're even pretending. Which is just, first of all, so condescending and incredibly gross. Just the idea of, like, we're going to have strangers on the train give her advice about this. Whose idea was that?
Let's see who wrote this. Hold on. I will tell you.
It's just, previously it just felt like the show wasn't really aware of how the Doctor looked. They weren't really understanding, oh yeah, he sounds like a dickhead. And now they do understand, and they're still not... They understand it, but they don't want there to be any repercussions from that will get in the way of the show they've already decided they're going to write. And I'm like, well, then why are we doing this then? Why are you facing up to the fact that he's a dick? Why are you having Clara have these, like, confrontations with him if you're not going to see it through? What's the point? Why am I watching this? What are you doing? You could have just not had this be a factor in their interactions at all, and that would have been fine. I would have continued to be irritated that the Doctor's an asshole and nobody seems to want to face that. But this is worse. This is just... No, everybody knows the Doctor's a dickhead, and somehow they just go on to completely forget, and they don't remember or care about a thing that just 20 minutes ago they seemed to be incredibly upset about.
Yeah. This was written by somebody named Jaime Matheson.
That name rings a bell.
I'm going to see what else he's written. Several Doctor Who episodes.
That makes sense.
Starting with this one.
This is the first one?
Yeah, this is the first one he wrote.
Weird, okay.
Being Human. He wrote 4 episodes of that. And then an episode of Dirk Gently. Something called Tripped. Nothing, like, significant.
Well, maybe I'm just thinking about a different Matheson, because it's not an uncommon name.
Yeah. Well, it's spelled Matheson, so it might not even be the same Matheson. It might not be pronounced that way. But, yeah, I don't know. This is an episode that everybody seems to really like in this season. And for certain aspects of it, I can see why. There's not a whole lot to hold on to this season in general. The next episode people really like as well, so see how we feel about it. But
I'm warning y'all. Don't get your fucking hopes up too high here, kids.
It's just, I also don't know what the point of this season is. I've gotten used to, especially in the Moffat era, for there to be a sort of overarching thing we're leading towards. Something that carries over from episode to episode.
Right.
And there have been, like, hints of that, I guess, with the Missy thing, but not often enough.
I've forgotten about the Missy thing because it's been so sort of inconsistent.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's a thing that's happening, kind of, but does it matter? I don't know. And then there's this thing with Clara and Danny and her not wanting to travel with the doctor because he did something to her that was so incredibly damaging. Mm-hmm. That I honestly don't know why she's back.
Yep.
And I don't know why, being back, that she's affronted by him calling it the last hurrah. And then, like, well, but you're going to come over for dinner, right? Like, what?
What?
Why?
If you don't want to travel with somebody, why do you want to see them again? Like,
yeah. Like, if you're that mad at him that you can't spend time with him, then why are you on this trip? And why are you thinking, like, oh, we're just going to be, like, regular human being friends where we see each other every once in a while?
Because we are meant to think that she doesn't want this to end. There's no actual logic to her actions, but the audience has to know that she doesn't want things to end.
But she's the one who was done with him.
Yep. But the show wants her to not want to be done.
Then don't write that story that way.
Exactly.
Find another way to have tension if you need there to be tension. But why there needs to be tension between the doctor and Clara, I guess because they're not going to have them attracted to each other, so they got to come up with something. Mm-hmm. It's just fucking lazy.
But that's exactly what I meant when I was like, then don't write it this way. Because you're having her have, like, completely conflicting reactions. And what it comes down to is this sort of like, well, bitches be crazy. And I'm like, are we, like, no, her qualms were completely valid, understandable, and most people would have them. And for you to just behave as if, like, well, she's acting like she doesn't like him and that she's mad at him, but, like, not really, is so fucking patronizing. Ew.
He made her decide whether or not she was going to save the fucking earth. Mm-hmm. And then was like, psych, I knew it was going to be okay. And she's like, fuck you. We're done. And then one episode later, she's like, ooh, what's this so fun? What do you mean it's our last hurrah? Like, what do you mean? Who are you? Is this a different Clara again?
Mm-hmm. It really does feel like they wrote different scenes and then just put them in a hat and then picked them out at random. And they're all from totally different areas in the season. because her behavior doesn't go together from scene to scene at all. There's no consistency to her motivations, her feelings on things, and everybody acts like they know shit about how she's feeling and her situation when there's no reason for them to know.
Yeah, and then there's the thing at the end where she's like, so you knew she wasn't going to die. And he's like, well, I didn't. I hoped. If that hadn't worked, I would have moved on to the next one. And she's kind of mad about that. And then she's like, yeah, but as long as you can have me back in time for dinner, I'm cool with continuing to do this. Why would I leave?
You're not as cold-hearted as you seemed. Girl, he just told you that, well, if she died, she died. I mean, I'm glad she didn't, and I was keeping my plans, like, under wraps, but whatever. Yeah, he is exactly as cold-hearted. It's an accident that this worked. There was literally a second left in the countdown.
He says that something about if all of your choices are bad ones, in the end you still have to choose. So then what happens if he's gone through everybody? Clara's still there. Oh, you're next. Mm-hmm. Let's see if it works this time. Everyone else has died.
I think because he's meant to have been the one who put himself in danger at the end because he took her place, that's supposed to sort of make up for it. But the conceit is that he's trying to keep it a secret from Gus what he's planning to do, right? Mm-hmm. I don't see why Gus would have had an issue with him taking this woman's place.
No, because it wasn't Gus's whole thing that he wanted somebody to figure out why this was happening.
Yes. So it was like a sort of weird, like, well, he couldn't know. Gus isn't over here rooting for you all to die. That's not the point. Gus is rooting for you guys to figure it out and doesn't really care about casualties, which, no offense, makes him a lot more like the Doctor than a villain, allegedly. And therefore, this idea of like, oh, I'll take her place, that way I can see it and do something about it, feels like something Gus would actually be very okay with.
Yeah.
So that whole premise of like, oh, I couldn't tell you because I couldn't let the system know what I was doing, that's just nonsense. That doesn't work at all. Just this whole thing is a mess.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame because it's a fucking like 20s car, like railway with a fucking mummy. And it's just such a great idea to start off with. I was just here for it. And
yeah, the mummy looked great.
The mummy was so creepy.
Great design on that mummy.
And mummies are not like an easy monster for me to be afraid of. Because they're kind of silly, you know? They sort of remind me of zombies. And like zombies, you just literally like run. Okay, if there's over 50 of them, you have a problem. But like, just put yourself in situations where there's not 50 of them. It's not really that hard. And make sure to not hang out with people who will lie that they got bitten. That's the other key. Other than that, I don't really get afraid of some. But I will say, I rewatched The Scorpion King Mummy when Bitches and Money came to visit a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And I had forgotten that the mummy steals this guy's tongue and eyes. And,
I've never seen The Scorpion King.
Okay, he steals this guy's tongue and eyes. It's not actually graphic in us seeing them be taken out of the guy's body, mm-hmm. but we see him later, unable to speak, unable to see, and it's really like fucked up.
Yeah.
And then the mummy comes back because it wants more parts to keep rebuilding itself. And it's really messed up. And that was one of the times where I was like, okay, this mummy is super scary. I hate this. But other than that, I haven't been scared by a mummy. And this mummy, the added aspect of that nobody else can see it. Oh man, no, thank you. Like, just the idea of, okay, first of all, it just teleported into the walk-in with this guy. Rude. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's just understood in the food industry that the walk-in is impenetrable. If somebody goes in there because they need to get away, you just fucking let them go in there. And nobody is meant to cross that boundary. You let them cry it out, let them scream and punch the wall, let them do whatever, and then this mummy just teleports right in there. Ooh, sir, no. Mummy clearly was not in food service. But I thought this was, just the setup of it was so interesting. Mm-hmm. And it's just such a shame, man. It really is.
Yeah, like I said, it had really good bones of a story.
Mm-hmm.
And then it fell apart when they started actually writing.
And the whole theory of like, oh, so this Gus got all of the people together who were like specialists in their fields in order to do this investigation. That also didn't really work for me.
Why not?
It just felt too conspiracy theory-y in a way that it was like just a bit gratuitous that we're going to make sure all of the people that are on this train are fodder so that we can like, you know, open an airlock and have them all discharged from it and add an extra layer of horror because the mummy himself isn't quite enough. And it just didn't really like, there were a lot, when you stop and like think about, oh yeah, we have this artifact that seems to manifest this mummy and we want people to study it. Have y'all met academics? Because all you need to do is tell them that and they will still be there. Mm-hmm. They don't need to be tricked. They will still be like, are you serious? You guys are claiming there's a mummy ghost and that it just kills people? Oh, yeah, no, I gotta see this. And they would still come. There's no need to like lie and trick and whatever. Just have this be an actual expedition. Have that be like part of the thing is like, oh yeah, this is the Orient Express and it stops and you get to go on like a dig somewhere as part of the package for this. And it's like, you know, a bit of the lore gets like included in the whole thing instead of it just being like, it's this elaborate con to try and get like, the doctor says that he got given free tickets to like try and lure him on before. And that's part of why Clara was super mad that he like knew this wasn't going to be a simple last hurrah. And I feel like that's really all the reason that they did it this way. They wanted Clara to find out that the doctor had an inkling shit was going to go down and have another reason to be angry at him. Now, I don't know why they want her to have another reason to be angry at him because they haven't dealt with the other 16 reasons to be angry with him. So I don't know why they even want to add another one. But it really does just feel gratuitous. Like it didn't need to go down this way and it would still have been really interesting.
And also, she knew something was up because somebody died. Nobody was talking about it. She goes out into the hallway, like knocks on his door and he's not answering. And she just starts doing her own little investigation when she sees Maisie. Mm-hmm. So like, what part of going on an adventure with the doctor has ever been unlike this?
That's always my question because we never see the ones that just go okay.
Right.
Which is the point of the show, but also I would love like a little montage to assure me that sometimes there's just fun. Because otherwise I don't really get it.
The montage we did get recently was when things were always going badly. Mm-hmm. So from what we know in her adventures with the doctor, there's always something dangerous happening. Mm-hmm. What made you think that this time where you're like, okay, this is my last time, is going to be just a leisurely ride on a train in space?
And if the doctor has been sent invitations before, how many times has this happened? Because don't you think this train would start to get a bit of a reputation?
Maybe it's not always on this train?
So it was a complete coincidence that enough people that it had like summoned with its fake invitations were on it to finally let the thing loose?
I don't know, because it's a computer that's sending them out, so I guess we have to assume it is the computer that lives on this train, and this artifact lives on this train as well.
Yeah, but like, when does it choose to let it loose? is it just waiting for the doctor specifically? Because it doesn't sound like that. The doctor makes it sound like, oh, there's a bunch of experts on here.
Well, there were a bunch of experts, and the killing started before the doctor got there.
So, but my question is, this doesn't sound like it's the first time that this has happened.
Right. Well, you're not supposed to think about that.
Oh, I am. That's my job.
I know.
I would like the show to think about things as much as I think about things. That feels like something that is sort of, like a bare minimum.
Yeah.
Show. Help a girl out. I want this to make sense. I do, but you don't really... Because then, let's just, then the Orient Express gets shut down. We had an 80% casualty rate. They've been put out of business. That feels like what would happen the end. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's just a vibe to the way he talks about how this works and getting these experts on here that makes it sound like, oh, they've been working on this problem for a while. And they keep on sending out these invites. And this is just happened several times. But then we hear about the cook having been on this train for a while, and people know the names of other employees, and clearly these people have been working together. So then what happened before?
I don't know. It almost seems like there's two different things happening here. Is we're supposed to believe that this has been happening, and yet we're also supposed to believe this is the first time it's happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like somebody didn't really think it through.
Yeah.
It's almost like... I'm sorry, everybody, but I can't not do the thing that I do. That's what you wanted. You wanted this. Every time that y'all are about to get mad at me for pointing something out, I just want you to remember, we gave you the option. And y'all told us, no, keep doing it. So This is what you get.
Yeah.
And that's that.
You get episode after episode where we can not find all that much to say that's positive.
Mm-hmm. Other than the design was cool and Claire looked amazing.
Yeah.
Owen said something like, she looks really good in that flapper outfit. And I was like, she looks good in everything.
Seriously.
There has yet to be a period where they put her in costume and she doesn't look fucking astonishing. So
they could put her in a burlap sack.
Yep.
And she would make that shit fashion.
Yep.
She's incredible. Her makeup was so good. They put extra lashes on her. Mm-hmm. Just her hair looked so cute.
I'm pretty sure that was a wig.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, nevertheless.
Because she has longer hair than that. And I was looking at it like, oh, is it pinned up to look like a bob? No, it was a bob, so it's definitely a wig. But it still looked great on her. She could definitely cut her hair that way.
Yeah. So
that dress was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
I love a 20s flapper dress.
Yeah.
The more fringed, the more little sparkly bits, the better.
It's so annoying because the whole fashion is meant to be sort of hipless and boyish. And that has just never worked for my body type ever.
Mine neither. I have always had hips and boobs. And there's nothing I can do about it. Which is why I've never actually purchased any of the fringe dresses that I've saved on different websites, because I know that's not going to work on me.
Yeah, we did a Gatsby New Year's party a few years ago, and I just happened to stumble on a dress that really worked on me, despite the fact that I was certain I wasn't going to find anything. And I got it for I think it was $30 at Dillard's. It was on clearance, and it was one of those flares out at the bottom, trumpet style, and otherwise very beaded type dealies. And that's the closest to a dress in the 20s style that I found that works. And it's not entirely in the fashion even, really. But anyway, is there anything else that you want to mention? Because I feel like we've really that's it. There
were 2 deleted scenes from the final episode due to timing reasons. The first scene featured the Doctor protesting against superstition after seeing that people had lit a candle near the scroll and were leaving trinkets and money near it as if it was a shrine. The second scene revealed that Maisie was present near the campfire on the beach at the end, explaining that when the Doctor implanted Maisie's pain and trauma into himself, he took them away from her for good.
Oh.
Neither one of those were necessary, so I understand why they're cut. Following the wedding of Amy Pond and Rory Williams, the 11th Doctor received a call informing him that an Egyptian goddess was loose on the Orient Express in space. I do remember them saying that.
I don't remember that. Like, you mean in this episode they said that?
No, after the wedding, in the episode The Big Bang. After, like, they were, like, dancing and all that stuff. He was about to leave, and he said he got a call saying there was an Egyptian goddess on the loose on the Orient Express in space, and they went with him.
Oh, okay. But that's
knowing
not
Stephen
the
Moffat,
same thing, because it's
no.
like, that was a goddess.
Yeah, totally different thing. But knowing Stephen Moffat, he wrote that in that episode, and then just took that line and decided, I need to do an episode like that someday.
I don't know.
Maybe he should have made it an Egyptian goddess so it could be a return. Like, oh, I've tried this before with Amy and Rory. It didn't work.
Instead of a soldier doubling down on a theme that already didn't make any sense.
Yep. It has been 3 weeks since Clara stormed out of the TARDIS after the incident on the moon in 2049.
Okay.
The Doctor manipulates Clara similarly to how the 7th Doctor once manipulated Ace into no longer believing him. Or believing in him.
What?
I think we're supposed to believe that whole thing with him making her bring Maisie and her believing that he was going to let Maisie die is that he's manipulating her.
Ace?
I guess there was an episode where the 7th Doctor manipulated one of his companions into no longer believing in him.
Oh, cool.
Clara's caller ID photo for the Doctor is a picture of a stick insect with a top hat. She had previously called the Doctor a big gray-haired stick insect.
That's pretty funny, actually. I did not catch that, but I enjoy that.
I didn't catch that either. The Doctor's respiratory bypass system allows him to handle lack of oxygen considerably better than humans.
All right.
And I made a note that the audience feedback on this episode was only positive from everyone who responded. Some people said it was one of their favorites of the season and even one of their favorites in general.
Y'all are a mess and not to be trusted.
I wouldn't, if I had to rank episodes, this would not, it would probably be like lower middle.
I'm blown away by that. Like, all I can think is the rest of the season's so bad that people have a rosier memory of how this was because it's in comparison to other really bad episodes. Everybody
disliked Killed the Moon because of the moon being an egg, and that was it. No one else had any other feedback about that episode of why they didn't like it. It was just because I didn't like that the moon was an egg. That's all they could remember of it.
Although I didn't really think that was so much of a thing.
Yeah, I didn't really get too much pro-life stuff from that. But there was some feedback from Sean about the yo-yo. Because I was like, what the fuck with the yo-yo? He said the yo-yo is a reference to the 4th Doctor, who used one a couple of times. Other classic Doctors would pull a yo-yo out of their pockets as well. So I guess that's just a Doctor thing.
Okay.
Trying to see if there's anything else that's... there's more stuff about the egg. People really did not like the moon being an egg.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying, guys. Y'all have the wrong priorities. You're getting caught up on the wrong shit. Like, that's not... This show does bonkers... I don't understand why that's suddenly too far. Where do you all draw the line in the sand? It feels really arbitrary.
Kat did say, for me, this is the weakest series of the modern show by far. It can make sense, or I can make sense of some of the character issues by using the whole being a soldier for hundreds of years thing, but if that's the case, they should be more explicit about it. So she agrees with us. Like, they're not telling us why he feels this way. They're just expecting us to accept it as fact, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And like I said, I just don't think that this whole, like, experiment with a mummy on a train makes sense either. Like, as on the surface, it's just what? And when you push at it at all, it just completely falls apart. And the doctor lying and the motivations for lying don't work.
Right.
Like, the cornerstone of every part of this episode doesn't work.
Agreed. Vanessa said that she hated Clara pretty much because she was tired of Stephen Moffat's bullshit. Clara felt like a clone of Amy, who has the same characteristics as River, Irene Adler, etc. I had to stop watching Doctor Who after the 50th special because of how pissed off I was at everything that Moffat did.
That's fair.
I'm just gonna say I agree. I was already over Moffat's bullshit early on in season 5, which I changed my mind about that pretty significantly. But at this point, it's really showing that his attention is divided. I feel like the last season and this season have been utter messes. And that seems to come from the person running the show not giving the show his focus.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I felt similarly to season 6 of Buffy. Because that was the first... Actually, that was the second season that Joss wasn't fully running the show. He was doing Angel, but by that point, he was also doing Firefly. And I felt like season 6 was incredibly depressing and didn't feel like Buffy most of the time.
Yeah, I agree with that.
At the time, and like all the Joss stuff that we've learned about him aside, at the time I felt like this show is suffering because he's focusing on Firefly and Angel. And not on Buffy, when Firefly and Angel were having really strong seasons, and Buffy was a slog that year, except for the musical.
Ooh, you broke up for me.
Sorry.
We've been having some Skype problems, guys. Sorry.
Yeah. But, so yeah, that's how I feel about this, is that Moffat has been doing Sherlock at this point. I don't know what season it was, probably season 2. Of Sherlock, and these last 2 seasons of Doctor Who have not been strong.
Yeah.
And that comes from not having great leadership. And it seems like when he does give his input, it's all of his bullshit and not any of like his good instincts. It's just his shittiness, and he can be so shitty. I haven't forgiven him for saying that the Doctor can never be a woman.
Yeah, that's so gross. Like, just get fucked, dude. And, like, not actually.
Yeah. He's apologized for that and said he's learned, but I don't forgive it. Because he had every opportunity to make it happen and said it would not.
All right.
Which, you know, is probably better for all of us because the dude does not know how to write women.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's understandable why somebody who has no idea what women are like or who they are and doesn't see them as full people would think that they can't be a doctor, because he just doesn't seem to hold us in high esteem in the first place. So,
yeah. And I haven't watched Sherlock, so I don't know what the concerns or problems are with Irene Adler, but I'm going to assume it's the same shit that he puts on all women that he writes. As much as I like Amy, as much as I love River, there's inconsistencies and there's definite problems of like, this is not how a woman would behave.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to say hi to new patrons real quick. This week, we've got Ava, Tom Stifle, and HollyMac79. Well, welcome to all of you lovely people. You're wonderful. I hope that you have been enjoying the show, even though we haven't. And bear with us. Hopefully things will get better. And
we went on 0 tangents this week.
I mean, yeah. It just feels like when you don't want to talk about the plot, going on a tangent doesn't feel as satisfying. Because you're not neglecting anything that you're excited to get back to.
Yeah.
So it's like, we just want to get through it and get it over with because we're mad.
Yeah.
At least that's my feeling on it.
I'm not even mad.
I know, you said, but I am, and I'm assigning it to you because I think you are a little mad, even though you're claiming you're not.
I'm not, like, gonna pound the desk mad. I'm just like, it's just so bad that I'm angry at that. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed.
Okay, Mom. All right, everybody. Well, we will see you next week with a new episode. Wish us luck. And until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.